everyone. Once again I welcome all the students in our this session, and we have already started this session with the chapter name, that is physical and chemical changes. So and so much part we have already covered in this of this chapter already. So 2-3 session we have already done for this chapter, and we have seen so many things like what is meant by physical change, what is meant by chemical change, right? And we have further divided, and we have classified on the basis of slow changes, fast changes, and permanent changes, right? Temporary changes, reversible changes. So many things we have covered already, and recently in our last lecture we have covered what is physical change, and we have taken so many example to understand what is mean by physical change. So now here we will just talk about a chemical change. This is also we have covered so much part in our last lecture, that is if the change which is permanent change, right, and it is making something new substance at the end of reaction. And again we can say the composition of the whatever result we are getting or the product we are getting, that is totally different from a parent product. So that is called a chemical change, and some energy will be absorbed or released in the reaction, and it's non irreversible reactions. So that is called a chemical change. That is a basic difference between a physical and chemical change. So many example we have seen, like your mother is cooking a food. So before it was a raw material, and after cooking a food we cannot change it back to the normal stage. It is an irreversible reaction for the chemical change, and something new substance is formed, right? If you are taking an example of raw rice, so it is becoming hard. It's look hard when, and you cannot eat it properly. So after cooking the food, it is becoming soft, and we can eat it easily. And the whole the composition of raw vegetable and raw requirement of the food is very different if you compare with the cooked food. And in that we are using a kerosene stove, cooking gases, so many things we are using which are helpful to give heat, and after providing this heat it is going to be changed. And one more thing, that is if we are removing the source of energy, then also it cannot be reversible. Like in physical reactions or physical change, we have seen when we are removing the substance or the energy, so it can come back to the normal stage. But this in the chemical reaction it will not come back when you remove the energy also, or the energy sources. Here we have taken example raw vegetable. When you heat this raw vegetables, in the presence of heat it will convert into the cooked vegetable. So it is a chemical change, right? We have taken an example of making chapati also. When you are just making a chapati from dough, it can be a physical change, because if it is not come properly we will do it again. But once you cooked it, after cooking you cannot make it back to the dough, and it is totally different from a previous product. So that is why it is irreversible and permanent change. And so many examples we have seen, like roasting of iron, ripening of fruits. Once the fruits will ripen, it will cannot become back to the normal stage. Bursting of crackers, right, it is also releasing some energy. Then growing of a plant from seedling to a big tree. So these are some example to understand what is a physical, what is a chemical change, right? And here also we will just see some more examples, like soaring of milk, preparation of soap from oil, changing of sugar into a black powder, because once you just burn the sugar at a high temperature, it will just change into the black color, and we will not get back after it is happened. Burning of coal, decomposition of organic matters. Boiling of egg, once you boil the egg it will not come back to the normal. So these are some changes, and we have also seen some changes can be come into more than one category also, one, because we have categorized the changes. So here some examples we will see, that is can become into more than one category. Like formation of curd, it is a desirable because we need it, intentionally we are doing this, so that is why it is a desirable also. It is a chemical change because it cannot become back, cannot become reverse. It is a slow change, right, because it will take time. It is an irreversible change, right, because it cannot be going to be reversed. So this if we are taking the example of forming of milk, so it can be suitable into 4 categories, and it can be a common example for this all 4 categories. So following features and activities describe some more examples of the chemical changes. What are the following features? And this is also we have taken an example. Once you are adding a small amount of curd into the milk, it will totally change to the hold the milk to the curd, and once it is just get converted into curd, we cannot get back to the normal stage. So this is called a milk changing into a curd, that is permanent change. One more example we have seen that when you burning the candle, so candle, some wax can be burned, some can be milled. So the wax, it will burning, right. So it is a chemical change, because once it is burning, it will just converted into a carbon dioxide plus water vapor, and means light energy and heat energy. So we cannot bring it back to the normal. So that is why it is going to become into the chemical change. We have taken an example also. If you are making a dough, and then you are making a chapati, and once you bake onto the pan, it will not going to be a come back to the normal stage. So that is also you can say the permanent change, right. Some more activities also we have seen, that a piece of paper, if you burn it, after burning you cannot bring back the normal paper from the ash, because, and this thing also we can understand here, ash is a new product which is going to be made. Before it was a paper, now it is a ash, and the chemical composition of ash and paper is totally different, and we are getting a ash that is a new product. So that is what is going to come under a chemical change, right. So this is some point we can be understand. So here we will see in detail what is burning. So in burning, actually what will happen, the energy will utilize, and it is just reacting with oxygen, right. So burning is a chemical process, already we are just discussing, which the substances react with the oxygen. Anything which is reacting with oxygen, it will just we can say it is burning, and it will produce the oxides of that product, and evolution of some energy will be released in the form of heat or light. So this is example, burning of fuel and candle, etc. So many examples we can be take for this. So burning is a chemical process, right, because it will give you a new substance, and some energy in the form of heat and light can be removed from it, or can be removed from the reaction. One more example we have already seen. Once you are just keeping the nail, iron nail, and into the water, and before putting into the water, you just check the iron nail to attract with magnet. So it is easily going to be attract with the magnet, because it is having the magnetic activity, right. And once you just keep this iron nail into the water, so what will happen, the rust will form on the surface of the iron, and this is a new substance. The rust is a new substance, that is what is called a chemical reaction. And after rusting, just you try to just attract with the magnet, it will not going to be attract easily, because the new form, the rust is there, and rust is not having the ability to attract with iron or magnet. So that is why we can say the rusting of iron is also a chemical process, because because rust is a new product which will going to be formed, and it is not a reversible reaction. We cannot be make a normal iron from a rust. Once it will make the rust, it will just lose, we can lose the iron. So that is also a chemical reaction or chemical change. Again, it is a slow process, right, because rusting of iron, it will not just happen into 1 or 2 seconds, or in 1 or 2 hours. It will take more years and years and months to be rust. So this all the clues which is giving here, that is will show the example will going to become under the chemical reaction or chemical process. Okay, so next we will see a burning or rusting is actually is a chemical process in which the iron reacts with oxygen in the presence of moisture. Here it is just reacting with oxygen, but there is a condition of moisture also to produce a reddish brown substance called rust. So here rust is a reddish brown substance. This reddish brown substance is nothing but a rust only, right. So this rust is a new product which is going to be formed in this chemical reaction. That is why rusting is also called a chemical reaction. Understood? So like this we have seen basically the burning and rusting is an example which is going to be come under a chemical change, right. Now one more activity is here. In this activity what we have to take, just we have to take a teaspoon, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and just put into the pan and just burn it, right. So ultimately it is turned black and get charged, and now the stop heating and sugar and dry to get back. So once you remove the heat, so you cannot get back a normal sugar. When you are just heating a sugar onto a high temperature, it will just get converted into a black residue, black color. Sugar will convert into the black color. So once you remove the heat, once you remove the energy, you cannot get back the normal sugar. So you cannot bring it to the back on removing the heating from the sugar. So it is called a charcoal. The substance will make that is called a charcoal, and some gases also produces like carbon dioxide and water vapor. Once you just burning the sugar, you will see some gases is also in the form of in the like a smoke it is producing, that is a carbon dioxide, and some water vapor is also produced. So the gases immediately mix with the air and you do not even see them, right. So the product which is coming out, that is a gas, it is immediately adding into the atmosphere and you cannot bring it back. And now taste the black substance, the charcoal, right. Once you testing the substances, it will also completely a different qualities and different texture. It is not going to be a sweet, right. So this is show that its properties are completely different from those sugar. Once you check the test the sugar, it will going to be a test sweet, but this product, it is something new product, that is called charcoal, and it is not going to be a test like a sugar, it's not going to be test like sweet. So that is why we are telling here, this is also the example of chemical change, because once you burn the sugar, the new product will be get, that is a charcoal, that is black color, and it is the characteristics of this new product is totally different from sugar, and it is a permanent change. So that is why we can say the burning of sugar is a chemical change. So on the basis of this criteria, you just think about 2-3 steps, like the new product is going to be made or not, the characteristics is same or different, or it is a, you can be make it reverse by removing the force or energy or heat. So these are several points you just understand and just compare whatever the change you want to check, whether it is a chemical change or whether it is a physical change. So just means observe or compare with these properties and then decide it is a chemical or physical. Now several characteristics of the chemical change we will also discuss, as we have seen so many characteristics for physical change also. So what are the characteristics for chemical change? Once it is happening, so what are the things is going to be happen? So the change is a permanent and cannot be reversed. These are some parameters for checking whether it is a chemical change or not. So these are the permanent change and cannot be reversed. You cannot do anything to make it reverse, it will just permanently happen because it is a chemical change. One more new substance are formed, right. Before it was not there, but after the reaction will happen, if it is a chemical change, the new substance will form and it is a permanently irreversible change. And the third one, composition and properties of the original substance change. Whatever the properties are before, that is totally changed, because if we have taken an example right now for sugar, so the properties of the sugar and properties of charcoal which we are getting after burning it, it is a totally different. So that is we are saying here, composition properties will going to be a totally change from the original substance, and there is an exchange of energy during a chemical change. If it is a chemical change, there will be must we can say exchange of energy will be there. This means heat or light or both might be given out or consumed. Exchange of energy in the form of heat or in the form of light. Once you are burning something, might be it is just releasing the heat or releasing the light, or in some other way it is just vice versa, means is absorbing the light or heat energy. So it can be happen, but definitely the exchange of energy will be happen in the chemical change. So these are 4 major points with the help of this point we can be understand whether it is a chemical change or physical change, right. So here it is given means a reactant and a product, means a chemical change is generally called a chemical reaction. We can also use the word chemical reaction to the chemical change, because actually the reaction is only the happening whenever something is burning, it is just chemically reacting with oxygen. That is why we can say it is a chemical reaction, and the original substance is called the reactant and the new substance form is called the product. Whenever we are just using or we are just applying or some product or some it is called reactant, means we are using a sugar and we are burning it. So here the sugar is a reactant which are going to be react, or if we are adding two things that are come under the category of reactant, and when we are applying something force or we are giving heat, so it will come under the chemical change. And once the chemical change will happen, whatever the new product will form, it is called a product. So in the left hand side we will just write reactant, which is going to be taking part into the reaction, and final product it is called a product. So whenever you are writing a chemical reaction, you have to be just write like this side reactant and this side product. So we can be understand what will happen into this, and whatever the force and whatever the things we are using, we have to write on an arrow, and this arrow is showing the reaction will be just happening from left to right, and it is a non-reversible reaction. If it is a reversible reaction, there is one more arrow like this, so we can understand the reaction can be reversed, but this reaction cannot be reversed. It's a irreversible reaction, that is only a one arrow is given here, and this arrow is showing the reaction is happening from left side to right side. So these are some terms you just have to be understand once you are just discussing about this chemical reaction. Now how will you know that a chemical change has takes place or taken place? How can we decide whether it is a chemical change has takes place or a physical change has take place? So for that also we having several points. With the help of this point we can easily understand. So that is a chemical change what is happening here. So see one more time here, what are the examples we can be take for to understand whether it is a chemical or physical change. So it is possible because the chemical change is usually accompanied by, if there is a happening of chemical change, there will be sure these things will be happen. Change in the color, whatever the things you are going to be put into the chemical change, definitely it will change the color of the reactant and product. So ripening of the fruit, if you are taking the example of ripening of food, so if you see the example of mango, so raw mango it is totally different in color, like a green in color, and once it is ripened it is just change the color into yellow. So ripening, so change in the color will must be happen. The color for raw fruit changes of on the ripening, and heating of sugar or burning of mastic give a black substance. If you are taking example of sugar, when you are just before heating it is look like white color, when you burn it, it will just totally change to black color. So the color will be changed. And the next thing, evolution of gas, the gas will be evaluated from this reactant. The reaction of whatever the things we are doing like zinc with the dilute hydrochloric acid. So chemical change, because a salt is called a chloride is formed and gas hydrogen will be just released from this. So that is why it is called a evolution of gas. Some gas will be released in the form of like in this example, when you are burning a zinc metal zinc, it will just produce a gas hydrogen, is it will evolve from here. And then release or absorb of energy, either the energy will be released or can be absorbed, both the thing can be happen in the form of heat, light and sound. These three form of energy can be absorbed or can be released in the reaction. So if you follow these things will be happening, you can definitely say this is a chemical reaction will going on. So burning of crackers is a chemical change. When we are just exposed to the crackers, it produces the heat and light and sound energy also. So that is a chemical change we can be understand, and hence the energy change will be happen or involved in the changes. So these are three steps we can be understand. Once we can be decide it is a chemical change if the all the three things will be happen, right. Number one, change in the color is changing, and the second one, evolution of gas. Some gases is releasing while the reaction is happening, so we can be understand. And release or absorption of energy in the form of sound, light or heat. So we can be understand this is a reaction will be called a chemical reaction, or the change is going to be a chemical change, right. So there is one more activity we will also just observe here to demonstrate. You have to take a beaker and put some water into that, and just put 1 to 2 pieces of quick lime. It is a solid in the condition quick lime. Add some water into that, and once you are adding a quick lime, you will observe that the quick lime pieces first crumbles when we are just adding into the water and then dissolving into it, because it can be dissolved into the water. So first it will just crumbles, break down into the small pieces, then it is just slowly dissolve into the water, and in the water it is evolving a large amount of heat energy. Once you check the water or the temperature of the water, it is going to be increased. So if you touch the beaker, you will feel it is very hot. So here we can be also say this is a chemical reaction. Why? Because before the water is on a normal temperature, once you just adding the quick lime, it is reacting in the water and it is just releasing the energy in the form of heat. So we can be understand this is example of chemical reaction. And what the more thing will be happen into this, we will see some more points is there. So and a new white solid or substances like calcium hydroxide is formed. Before it is a lime, now it is converted into a calcium hydroxide, that is why it is called a new substance is going to be formed, and which is partially dissolved into the water. Some amount of this calcium will going to be dissolved into the water, and to produce alkaline solution called lime water. So once this lime will be dissolved into the water, it is called a solution called lime water, right. And the remaining white solid settle at the bottom of the beaker, so which is slaked lime. So these are going to be a new things are going to be made, and the energy for releasing in the form of heat. That is why it is called a chemical reaction. So this proves that a dissolving of quick lime into the water, it is a chemical change with energy change also takes place. So these are examples we can be understand which is going to be a chemical change. Now the different types of energy is needed or are needed for different chemical change, like so many different kind of chemical change can be happen. So it is required different kind of energy. Sometime it can be required a heat energy, sometime light, sometime electricity. So heat is necessary for cooking of food and burning of paper. Once you are just cooking a food, it is also a chemical change, but it is required a heat energy. Light energy is required for photosynthesis. Once you are just take an example, in the daytime the plant are doing photosynthesis, so it is just required sunlight. Without sunlight the photosynthesis will not happen. That is why it is called a requirement of light is there. Then in the next we can also say electricity is needed in the necessary to decompose water into its constituent element by hydrogen and oxygen. Once you want to just decompose the water into hydrogen and oxygen separate, so you need electricity. So these are some kind of energy like heat, light and electricity, which is going to be required for the completing this kind of the reactions. So that is you have to be just keep in mind this kind of reactions or some energy will be definitely required to do the chemical reaction, because as we have said, chemical reaction will need energy, because in this reaction the energy sometime can be absorbed and sometime can be released into this reaction. So that is you just understand and apply some energy, right. Now here we will just discuss about one more activity, in that what you have to take a dilute hydrochloric acid in a test tube, right, then add some zinc granules to this acid into the test tube. So what will happen, you will observe some bubbles are coming out with some sound that indicates evolution of gas, right. So if you are adding if you are taking hydrochloric acid and adding a zinc granules, so it is just going to be react with hydrochloric acid, and in the finally it is just releasing the gas. So it will also the symbol of chemical reaction, because here the evolution of gas is there, the gas is evolving in this reaction, and when you just touch the test tube, it becoming hot, you feel it is going to be hot. So this indicates that some heat energy has been released during this reaction. So here the two things will be happening: number one, evolution of gas, and number two, evolution of heat, because it is becoming hot. So this both the things can be just explain it is a chemical reaction, because heat is also releasing and gas is also releasing, and bring a lightened mastic near the mouth of this test tube. So a pop-up sound is also heard. So this confirms that the gas is evolved is hydrogen gas. Once you bring the mastic near this test tube mouth, so because it is a hydrogen gas, it is combustible, so it will give you the sound, pop-up sound. So that is all the things can be just mentioned here. Just releasing the gas, it is becoming hotter, and once you bring the mastic, it is just giving a pop-up sound. So these are the some criteria we will just understand, and it is enough to understand that is it is a chemical reaction, right? So these are some criteria you just use once you are just talking about whether it is a chemical reaction or not, right? So this all the example, just keep in mind what we have seen, and the little bit portion is remaining of this chapter, that is importance of the chemical changes. What are the importance will be going to be happen into this, we will see in detail, right? Because whenever it is going to be a chemical change, there is it will give you some important points. So various types of the chemical changes takes place in our daily life, like some are natural while some are man-made, right? So many examples, like in the beginning of the chapter also we have seen the example, like what are the chemical reactions, whatever the physical reaction, and which are going to be come into the man-made, and which are coming under the natural. So that is some criteria we have used. So most of them are very useful to us, and some are listed below, but all the reactions that are useful definitely, because that is why we are saying that it is a use, some are the useful change, some are desirable, some are undesirable. So on the basis of that we will just discuss this importance of the chemical changes, and this remaining parts we will just discuss in our next lecture. So until now, whatever things we have studied, what is chemical reaction, what are the examples we have seen, and how it is going to be said that is a chemical reaction, and the 2-3 point we have just seen, that is just write down in your notebook whether it is a chemical change, so it will just give you new product, it will release or absorb some energy, or the properties of a new product, it is totally changed from the reactant product, from the reactant, right? And it is a means a non reversible change, it's a permanent change. So these are some criteria, if you just understand, we will just easily can be separate or can be understand whether it is a chemical or physical change. So see you in the next lecture, take care.